Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas visiting this morning with Keith Hohottle from ComQuest Services. All right, before the break, we were saying that there have got to be some flags that caring others can be watching for in the people that they're concerned about.
Sure.
What would some of those be?
So I think that no matter what the drug use is, I think we're looking at changes in attitudes, behaviors, things that don't look like they did before. So, for example, students in school that were active in sports, active in extracurricular stuff, all of a sudden those things become less important, drop in grades, some sort of suspicious activity that you haven't recognized in your kids. As a parent of a 25-year-old and a 7 and 8-year-old, I think back to when my son was in high school, and it wasn't uncommon for me to say, "Hey, let me take a look at your cell phone," and that was okay.
Mm-hmm.
Things that we don't think, or our kids think we're invading their privacy a little bit. But again, I think that there is that vigilance that parents have to have as to what's going on. So
Invade away. You're the parent,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. So, for example, if your son or daughter has been involved in an extracurricular activity and their grade's been pretty good all through school, and then all of a sudden when their friends change and maybe they're sleeping a little bit more and staying out a little bit later and staying at friends' house more often than what they did before, and then those activities start to diminish, or they don't want to play them anymore, even though they were probably, performing at a pretty decent level. Those are things that we suggest people look at.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it's just changing friends, changing habits, things like that.
Some of it is just adolescence.
Yes, which makes it even more challenging.
And the whole teenage angst thing. So it
Yes.
is difficult sometimes to determine, maybe particularly with young men, because they'll maybe become quieter or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes grades do drop, but that can be because there's other interests.
Yep.
And so some of that is teenage
Correct.
angst
Yep.
in itself.
Yep.
And so it's up to the parent, you're saying, to figure out, is it just that, and we will grow out of that, we'll
Right.
get through
Yep.
that, or is there something else?
Right, and I think we as parents need to be more vigilant now, just because it's so easy. The choice of drugs has changed from alcohol and marijuana to prescription drugs, and the impact of somebody becoming hooked on OxyContin or Vicodin or something like that is pretty significant, and it may be a little more difficult of a recovery, since there is that physical addiction. So again, I think vigilance and education is extremely important. The state of Ohio has mandated that all school systems provide some opiate education to their students during this current school year. So we've been out doing additional education. I know the Mental Health Recovery Services Board has been doing some additional education within the school system. So, again, this is just not one person or one group of people's issue. This is our community, and as a result, it needs to be our community or our recovery.
Yes.
So I think we all have a responsibility to that.
How young is too young to begin this education?
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, I guess we are seeing some middle school kids who are experimenting with substances.
Wow.
Most of the time it's high school age kids, but again, it's not uncommon for us to get a phone call from somebody whose son or daughter's in 8th grade.
But I'm hearing you say how critical it is now more than ever to know your child.
Yes.
So that if the habits are changing, you can get to the bottom of why pretty quickly.
Yes, and it is challenging. I mean, we have, most or a lot of families have two parents working, and it is challenging. There's no doubt whatsoever. Quest operates adolescent residential recovery for both boys and girls, and both of those houses, as of this morning, are full. And it's January 4th, so there's 27 kids in residential drug and alcohol treatment today.
Wow, and that's too many.
Yes, it is.
Since your recent collaboration and merger with Community Services, you've also taken on Samaritan's Table.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
So the Samaritan's Table occurs at St. John's on St. John's Church on McKinley. It is every Thursday. Starts about 11:30 to 1. It is open food service for anybody who wants to come and have lunch. Anywhere from 200 to 500 people are there every Thursday. It is incredible. The volunteers from the community put up just a tremendous spread. People can come and pick up canned goods and take some food home and things like that. So it is really, really a special day in the week for that community and for our community as well. So it's the first couple times I was there, it's like, wow, this is just fabulous.
Yeah, and the dignity.
Yep.
Because it's almost like a community in itself, the communal table.
Yep.
And be able to, I love all the fellowship that takes place at it. Yeah, it's and the dignified way. It's going to a restaurant. It's it's meeting with other people and a sit down meal that's far and away not what you think of as a soup kitchen.
Exactly, and it's one of those places. And I tell people this all the time. When you work in the field that I'm in, a lot of times, under no other circumstances would two people sit down and share a meal together, except when you work in social services. Leadership Stark County came through a couple weeks ago and had lunch there, and it was a really, really nice event. So we appreciate all the volunteers that are part of that. And in this merger process, I've inherited things that the Loving Choice Adoption and the Samaritan's Table and the emergency assistance we do for those people that struggle to pay the rent or need glasses or need things like that. And by having that emergency assistance program, again, another tremendous asset to the community. Did community Christmas through that program as well, and were able to purchase gifts for a number of families, and it was really, really special.
Well, since this summer, you seem to be really in charge of pretty much everything that goes on in this community.
Not quite.
I'm just amazed at all the services now that fall under ComQuest.
Sure.
That is remarkable. Yeah. So certainly, you mentioned the volunteer force. Let's talk about what do you need volunteers for? Everything, right?
So I think that we're always looking for volunteers. One, for the Samaritan's Table, they're always looking for volunteers. People that are in recovery that want to volunteer to take people to 12-step meetings from our residential programs, that's extremely helpful. And again, I've never been one to turn away somebody that wants to volunteer. So the easiest thing to do is for people to call and ask how they can help. That seems to be the best way, because the other part is that we've had people that have wanted to volunteer, but because our clients are protected by confidentiality and all of that stuff, we do have to maintain, the integrity of that as well. And so that offers some challenges from time to time, but the recovering community and those folks that volunteer at the Samaritan's Table and our board members, all 28 board members that we currently have, do just a tremendous job of volunteering.
What about items? You mentioned sometimes people need to be taken to their eye appointments or whatever. What about eyeglasses themselves? Do you do collections for that kind of thing, or are there clothing drives?
So
basic food drives.
Clothing and things like that, we accept from time to time depending upon the need. So we have a clothes closet at all of our residential programs. So that is helpful, particularly when folks are going out on job interviews. In Massillon, we have the Family Living Center, which is a homeless shelter. Folks access that through the homeless hotline at the Mental Health Recovery Services Board. It's in the old Red Carpet Inn, so from time to time those folks need food and clothing. So things like that can be donated. Absolutely, we would accept those, and I can get you that information as to who the contact person is for that.
Perfect. Let's give a phone number.
Sure. Quest phone number is 330-453-8252.
And one more time?
330-453-8252.
And the website? Since1919.org is the community services website.
And the Quest website is questrs.org.
So both of those, two websites, one organization.
Yes. Oh, yeah. We have lots of twos right now. We
Yes.
basically operate as two divisions with some integration that takes place. So we hope to be fully integrated by the 1st of July.
Let's talk about workforce development.
Sure.
Tell
So
us about it.
I'd be glad to. So one of the things that we look at is, do we have the workforce to meet the demands of the community? And we need some work on that. Not only us, but I think the community in general. So folks that are independently licensed counselors, independently licensed social workers are at a premium right now. One, because we just don't produce enough of them. Second of all, because as Medicaid managed care occurs and the transformation of that payment system, reimbursement tends to be, or looks like it's going to be, a little higher for those independently licensed folks and the chemical dependency licensed folks. So, we'd like to be part of some workforce development by offering internships and practicum. As I mentioned, I am an adjunct at Malone, and so I have 16 students in my last class, all of which are looking for practicum and internship sites, and I think most of them, all of them now have been placed. But again, I think that's part of being a responsible organization, is being a training and education center for both mental health and addiction. And in our strategic plan, developing that is key, not just for counseling staff, but also for support staff and other administrative positions as well.
Wonderful. And again, call the same number or go to which of those websites for more information?
The QuestRS. .org website, and then the HR tab.
Perfect. All right. We've got a couple minutes left. I know this all doesn't come free. You need to do some fundraising,
right. Yep.
And this happens to be the year that you will be having your fundraiser.
Yes.
You only do it every other year.
Yes,
Why
we
is
do.
that?
Well, that's how it got set up a number of years ago. So Community Services has traditionally done a number of fund development things throughout the year. Ray Fate and his staff does a great job with that. The Quest side, we have Quest Cooks every other year. It is scheduled for June the 2nd. It is a live, silent auction, food, always a good time. It will be at Brookside Country Club this year, and it typically raises over $100,000 for the agency, and we've used that for prevention and women's residential treatment, and this year we'll use it in the opiate recovery side of things as well. So
that's wonderful.
Yep.
Can people also say, "Oh golly, I want to donate to this"?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
They can donate
we'll
online.
take anytime.
We'll
We'll take all kinds of any kind of donation like that. Yeah, we appreciate that, and again, anything people want to do to help, we're more than happy to do
And
that.
Quest Cooks, who actually is doing the cooking?
Well, it's actually not. It started out the first year as a cook thing, but now it's that's just the name of it. So a couple chair people kind of organize that, and there's a committee that's worked together for the last 10 years that put it on, and it's just a really, really cool event.
Fantastic. Keith Hochladel, thank you so much for joining us this
Thanks,
morning.
Susie.
He is president and CEO of ComQuest Services. Do visit their website. Many thanks to Home Appliance and to Downtown Ford for sponsoring us this morning. Thank you again, Keith, for
Thanks,
joining
Susie.
us. And thank you
Anytime.
for joining us on Our Community.